Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev. Today we're gonna take a crack at an Autorunner style video game, with our own little twist of course. More on that later, but for now, we've gotta focus on the basics. We'll first start work on the player control, and then move on to the obstacles. And since I've never made an Autorunner before, this should be a fun learning experience. Well, that's the plan, so fingers crossed that not too much goes wrong. Our player was up first, so some button checks were in order. Setting up checks for the up and down keys, I had the player move on a 16x16 grid, which given the simplicity of the task worked out exactly as it needed to. Using key press checks got annoying though during the testing phase, so I opted for a hold system with a cooldown instead. I also changed movement from a 16x16 grid to a 32x32 grid to align it with the spacing of the white boxes in our play area. Now that we had our points defined, I wanted to make the movement less instant teleportation and more natural, so I added what I anticipated would be some simple math by first creating two sets of variables. One to keep track of the player's current position, which allowed me to make curry a variable, nice, and another set to keep track of the player's destination point when they move. Testing showed some issues with the player remaining on the grid, which intrigued me. Normally I would chalk this up to an error with my math, move on and tackle it later, but this seemed like it should have worked, and so many attempts were made to make it work. I tried rounding, I tried flooring, I tried different move speeds, I tried locking the grid after moving, yet for whatever reason moving down worked fine, but moving up threw everything off. So after a ridiculous amount of failed attempts and wasted time trying to fix the issue, I decided to instead rely on pure numbers that couldn't be disputed. I went with a cell count approach that would treat this like a loop. This way it would guarantee that the destinations are separated into 4 specific and absolute points. And a clamp was all I needed to limit the player's movement to just the grid. I added the checks for the left and right keys and did the same for the player's horizontal positioning. Honestly, while it took me forever to get to this method, in the end it was a lot better than what I had before. It's cleaner, more precise, and easily customizable if we need it to be. And while I'm already explaining things, to briefly explain the play area here, the colored tracks are simply there to make reading the screen easier for developmental purposes. And obviously the white blocks are the nodes in which the player can move between. I want to try making something less traditional and hopefully more strategical. And this likely won't really make sense until much later. So now that our player was finally mobile, we can now focus on adding the obstacles. I added a move speed variable to our dangerous obstacle objects and had it simply move to the left until off screen. Then in the HUD I set up the spawner that would choose between 3 different test patterns. In the end I went with one pattern that would spawn obstacles at the top and bottom of the screen, and the other 2 created obstacles that were a little more difficult to maneuver. And as you can see, but okay, well that pattern won't do. Okay, now as you can see, our obstacles were generated much like you would expect in an Autorunner. You can also see the challenge that comes with our player's movement, only being able to dodge an entire track rather than just a tile. I'm not completely sold on this yet, so that may change in the future. For now though, this gives us a nice brief insight into the future features yet to be coded, some of which I think are gonna make this thing pretty cool. Well, that's for another day since I ran out of time thanks to having to make the player movement prettier. So remember that if you like this video or enjoy Let's Dev in general, be sure to hit that like button. If you aren't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. And as always, be sure to leave your thoughts on our progress in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.